Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Promoter Frank Warren has spared no quarter for Andy Ruiz Jr. going in on the former unified champion, as well as suggesting that Tyson Fury would have stopped Ruiz Jr. So this is all in his latest column on his website. See here on screen, this is from frankwarren.com. Title, Ruiz has got to take it on the chins. And that's a humorous intro to a savaging piece that really goes in on Ruiz. But I'll start first with the comments around Fury likely having stopped Ruiz had they fought, if that had been him in the ring. This is in the second part of the article because he says Joshua did what he had to do and congratulations to him on getting his belts back. But I know what Ben Davison was getting at when he used the term a poor man's Tyson Fury. Ben wasn't being disrespectful because Tyson Fury wouldn't have been dancing around away from Ruiz. He would have done a job on him and stopped him. Tyson is elusive. When he looks to make them miss, he also seeks to make them pay. Watch the Wilder fight again and you will see getting up close holds no fear for Tyson. That is Frank Warren in his column saying that Ruiz Jr. would have got stopped by Tyson Fury. And I think my natural inclination when I sort of read that was to go, really? Would that have happened? Because Tyson Fury himself, not a big knockout artist. And Andy Ruiz Jr., despite his weight, very durable fighter, and he always has been. That first fight in June was the first time Ruiz Jr. had ever been down. And I think a lot of people seem to be forgetting from the first fight and the second fight, there were a lot of big punches that were landed by Anthony Joshua. A lot of big right hands in particular in that second fight. But it seems to be there's this narrative that's taken hold that Joshua was just running and jabbing all night. He was letting the right hand go at different points in the fight and connecting and having good success with it. So I think just to blanket sort of say Tyson Fury would have knocked out Andy Ruiz, would have stopped him. Yeah, I don't know about that because Fury doesn't exactly stop all of his opponents. He never has been a big puncher, but there has been, and this is when I was sort of thinking about the pros and cons of this sort of statement, weighing it up with the evidence that we have from Tyson Fury's career. You do have the Derek Chisora fight, the second one, where he just beat Derek Chisora into submission. That ended in a late retirement from Chisora from the weight and accumulation of the punches. Just couldn't continue, didn't want to continue. So that is a case where he got an accumulation stoppage. But you have to say, Ruiz and Chisora, I definitely think Ruiz has got a better chin than Derek Chisora. He has been knocked out a couple of times. There was the David Haye fight, and also Dillian Whyte knocked him out with a left hook in the 11th round of their rematch at the end of 2018. So it's not exactly like for like. I think we've seen from Ruiz Jr. that he's very durable. But in terms of a performance by Tyson Fury against Andy Ruiz Jr., I think, the sort of poor man's Tyson Fury tag that's been given to Joshua, I think to some extent we would have seen a slick Tyson Fury using his height and his reach similar to Joshua and really racking up the rounds based on his activity, his movement, peppering Ruiz Jr. with especially jabs, other shots too, but I don't necessarily think he would have been so much more aggressive than a guy like Anthony Joshua. And Joshua had been knocked out by Ruiz the first time, so of course he was cagey in the second fight. But do I think that Tyson Fury would have been standing toe-to-toe with Andy Ruiz Jr.? I'm not so sure that he would have been doing that for any sustained period of time, but they haven't fought. They're not going to fight. So some of it, to some extent, is all kind of moot, but it's at the same time, it's a big statement from Frank Warren, and I think it's good in terms of the PR and publicity that he'll get from this column, because a number of controversial statements, and obviously Fury gearing up for a rematch with Wilder in February 2020. So yeah, make of it what you will. I think initially I sort of thought about it and thought I wouldn't see it happening. I'm sure he would have been peppering Ruiz Jr. and maybe he would have been slicker than Joshua, but I don't necessarily think he would have stopped him. Do you think he would have stopped Andy Ruiz Jr., who's never been stopped before? Let me know. But the rest of the column, really interesting stuff, and Frank Warren really goes in on Andy Ruiz Jr. So at the top he sort of says fair play to Joshua, but he says Andy Ruiz Jr. on the other hand brought disgrace to him and the sport by simply failing to prepare to any sort of required level. Just because you are heavyweight, it shouldn't mean you don't have an obligation to display a certain degree of athletic intention. Yes, he was heavy last time around and usually wobbles a bit around the middle, but this was ridiculous. When eyebrows were being raised at the weigh-in, he literally was the elephant in the room. Joshua must have wondered which chin he was supposed to aim for. It was a bit late after the event to come out and say you partied too much and regret carrying so much weight. If he turned up like that for a non-title fight where the paymasters were not so invested in a positive outcome for their man, the promoters and TV executives would have been right hacked off over a fighter coming in so obviously out of condition. And spare a thought for those punters who might have had a punt on the champion, who had every right to believe he had put in the graft and having had the benefit of a full camp. Professional athletes have a responsibility to ensure a level playing field on behalf of those who pay for the privilege of watching. What we ended up with was a fella who basically scoffed himself out of being world champion and a spectacle that suffered as a result. The fault for this lies firmly with Ruiz, who didn't have any legs to close down a Joshua on the retreat. And then further down in the article, he sort of circles back to Ruiz. The bottom line from what we saw in Saudi is that Ruiz was a disgrace to the belts he was defending. He did a Buster Douglas and he ate himself out of contention. And the last line of the fight, he says, King of the heavyweight division to Burger King in the space of 6 months. Frank Warren really not leaving us wondering about what he thinks about that fight and Andy Ruiz Jr.'s performance in it. And I guess he's sort of summing up in quite a cutting way a lot of what people have been saying and thinking in recent days following the fight, which was in Saudi Arabia. But in terms of Tyson Fury stopping Andy Ruiz, even at 283 pounds, yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced. How about you? But also, Andy Ruiz Jr., do you agree with Frank Warren's sentiment there? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.